What if I told you the story of fire raining from the sky in the Bible was not a prophecy, but the memory of a real world-ending catastrophe? Would you believe it? Almost instantly, the sky itself seemed to ignite. A thriving Bronze Age city was erased from existence. Buildings vanished without a trace. Human bones were shattered like dried branches, scattered, pulverized as the ground turned to ash. For centuries, this mystery lay hidden within the verses of Genesis. Fire and sulfur falling from the heavens, an entire city consumed, a woman transformed into a pillar of stone. For generations, scholars treated this as religious metaphor, but new evidence now points toward a far more chilling possibility. The biblical account of Sodom and Gomorrah may be rooted in a real historical disaster. In the northeastern Dead Sea Plain, a site called Tal el-Hammam was re-excavated. During the Bronze Age, this city-state was immense, larger than Jerusalem or Jericho of the same era. It thrived in the southern Levant for nearly 3,000 years, a jewel of its time, until it vanished suddenly around 1650 BCE. Archaeologists soon realized this was more than a ruin, it was a crime scene, frozen in fire. The site is covered by a destruction layer nearly 1.5 meters thick. Bricks were pulverized, pottery melted and warped, some shards fused into green, glass-like material. Certain building materials boiled, exploded, and disintegrated, some even vaporized entirely. Research suggests temperatures exceeded 2,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than most volcanic eruptions. So where did such destruction come from? One explanation points upward. In 2021, a study published in Scientific Reports proposed that Tal el-Hammam was destroyed by a cosmic airburst similar to the Tunguska explosion. A small asteroid or comet, roughly 50 meters wide, detonated in the atmosphere. The energy released exceeded thousands of atomic bombs. The blast created a downward jet of superheated plasma, instantly incinerating everything on the surface. Shock waves traveled faster than sound. Buildings were torn apart. A stone disk weighing over 400 kilograms was hurled through the air. Within the ruins, researchers found shock-formed quartz and microscopic diamonds, minerals that form only under extreme pressure. Metal spherules rich in rare elements were also discovered, classic signatures of a cosmic impact. But the disaster did not end there. The explosion vaporized soil from the surrounding plateau and salt from the Dead Sea itself. These materials rained down across the Jordan Valley. The land was poisoned with salt. Agriculture collapsed entirely. Within a 20-kilometer radius, more than 100 towns and villages were abandoned. The region became a dead zone for over 600 years. Genesis describes fire from heaven, smoke rising like a furnace, the land turned into a salt wasteland. The parallels with archaeology are impossible to ignore. Not all scholars agree. Some question the mineral and geochemical evidence. They argue the data is not yet sufficient to prove a definitive cosmic impact. But even so, the archaeological facts remain. A layer of extreme violence, burned remains, shattered buildings, torn human bodies, a city that flourished for centuries and then fell silent in an instant. Something happened here. It could have been war, an earthquake, or something that fell from the sky. If Tal el-Hammam was destroyed by an airburst, then eyewitness memories could have survived, passed down orally from generation to generation until they were written into the book of Genesis, not as a scientific report, but as a story of divine judgment. If this is true, then nearly 4,000 years ago, someone stood on this land and watched a rock from space explode in the sky. And with the knowledge available at the time, there was only one explanation: the wrath of God. But apocalypse does not always fall from above. Sometimes it approaches slowly from the horizon, silent at first, until the sea itself begins to move. For Noah, the flood may have felt like the end of the world, a distant roar, growing louder by the hour, until sound became a wall of water. Geologists believe what followed fully qualifies as a biblical catastrophe. For centuries, the Mediterranean Sea had been rising until it overtopped a natural barrier near today's Bosphorus. In just days, salt water poured like a waterfall into the Black Sea basin, dropping more than 200 meters. A channel over 100 meters deep was carved in the earth. Fertile farmland vanished at a rate of nearly a mile per day. This happened roughly 7,500 years ago. For the people living along the Black Sea coast, it must have felt as though the sky itself had split open. The disaster was real. The question is, was this the Great Flood? This idea is known as the Black Sea Flood hypothesis. It was first proposed in 1997 by two Columbia University geologists. They discovered freshwater shells beneath marine sediments and traces of ancient river deltas on the seabed, evidence that the Black Sea had once been a vast freshwater lake and transformed rapidly into a saltwater sea. The flood may have submerged up to 27,000 square miles. At the same time, new cultures appeared, from the Nile Delta to Mesopotamia. Some suggest these people were climate refugees, driven from their homes by rising waters. Could the flood story have been born in this moment, passed down orally and eventually written into Genesis? The Bible says the fountains of the great deep burst open and rain fell for 40 days and nights. And flood myths do not belong to the Bible alone. The Epic of Gilgamesh, older still, tells of gods warning a man to build a boat. From Mesopotamia to the Americas, nearly identical stories appear worldwide. The Black Sea hypothesis is compelling because it offers a real, powerful event capable of seeding these myths. But not everyone agrees. In 2009, scientists from Woods Hole challenged the idea. They argued the Black Sea may have been only 30 meters lower, not 80 as previously thought. The flooded area may have been closer to 800 square miles, enough to devastate early farming, but not to destroy the world. And yet, for those standing on the shore, watching the sea advance day after day, it would have felt like total annihilation. Floods reshape the land. Other disasters strike faster, more violently, forcing people to give them a face. In Japan, that face was a catfish. The earth rolled like water. Tires were ripped into the air. Fires spread like lightning. On November 11, 1855, Tokyo was struck by a massive earthquake. At least 10,000 people died. Soon, strange images appeared in the streets. A giant catfish, pinned beneath a sacred stone, still writhing, still causing destruction. Its name was Namazu. To many, it was both the cause of disaster and a force of cosmic justice. Japan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Each year, around 15,000 earthquakes occur, 1/5 of the world's magnitude 6 events. Living in Japan means the ground beneath you is never still. Before modern geology, people searched nature for meaning. They noticed that hours before earthquakes, catfish would rise to the surface, thrashing violently. Fishermen saw it again and again. Observation became belief. By the 16th century, a new myth emerged, a colossal catfish living beneath the earth. Its movements shook the land. Earlier versions spoke of dragons or serpents, but over time the image sharpened. Namazu, long-bodied, sharp-eyed, its tail in constant motion. Biology offers an explanation. Catfish are highly sensitive to electromagnetic and pressure changes. They can detect microtremors hours before earthquakes, rising to the surface in agitation. They became prophets of disaster. In legend, Namazu is trapped beneath Japan, held down by a god using a massive keystone. That stone still stands today, the heart of a shrine, like a granite anchor pinning catastrophe in place. But even gods can lose their grip. When the restraint weakens, Namazu moves, and destruction follows. After the 1855 Edo earthquake, Namazu flooded Japanese art. Some images show wealth redistributed, the rich ruined, carpenters and laborers prospering through reconstruction. Destruction became renewal, the world reset. Even today, Namazu lives on in Japan's memory, used in disaster awareness campaigns, printed on street signs, a reminder of constant risk, a symbol, a warning. As if to say, nature knows long before we do. But not every apocalypse has a monster. Some disasters are silent. A homeland vanishes. This is the story of Britain's Atlantis. What if Atlantis did not vanish in an instant? What if it drowned slowly, year by year, until one final blow erased it completely? That is almost exactly what happened to Doggerland, a vast landmass once connecting Britain to Europe. As sea levels rose, it shrank over millennia, forests becoming marsh, rivers widening into estuaries. People adapted, until one morning the seabed off Norway collapsed. A massive tsunami surged across the North Sea. A wall of water erased what remained. When the waves withdrew, Doggerland was gone. No ruins, only memory, perhaps echoing still in the legend of Atlantis. Doggerland had once been an Eden, rivers, wetlands, open plains. You could walk from Britain to Denmark, avoid wild horses, see deer, meet hunters. Then the ice melted, slow at first, then violently. By the time the Storegga slide collapsed, Doggerland was a low, sodden island. People clung to its edges. The disaster began far to the north. 720 cubic miles of seabed gave way, enough debris to bury California under 25 feet of mud. The tsunami reached 14 meters high, a 2-story wall of water. In Scotland, it surged 50 miles inland. Doggerland stood less than 5 meters above sea level. There was nowhere to run. Bones and tools pulled from fishing nets tell the rest of the story. After the wave, human presence vanished. Stone tools disappeared, as if a light had been snuffed out. Across Britain and Europe, memories of lost lands survived as folklore. Wales remembers Contrergwelod. England tells of Lioness. Scotland speaks of drowned paradises. These stories may come from survivors or their descendants, and the science continues. A 2023 study revealed an even earlier seabed collapse 12,000 years ago. These disasters were not isolated, but chapters in a long story of rising seas. Today, the North Sea still rolls over Doggerland's remains, covering the bones of those who once lived there. Through sonar and chance discoveries, we reconstruct their world and are reminded land is not permanent. If a tsunami can erase a continent, what happens when disaster comes from the sky? When the sun darkens? When winter never ends? In the year 536, the sun truly dimmed, not for a day, but for 18 months. Cold, lifeless light, like the moon behind fog. Crops failed, empires crumbled. In the north, people whispered the gods were angry. This was no myth. It may have given birth to one of the darkest prophecies, Fimbulwinter, the endless winter before Ragnarök. Historians call 536 the worst year to be alive, and they may be right. A massive volcanic eruption, likely in Iceland, filled the upper atmosphere with ash. From Europe to Asia, sunlight faded. The historian Procopius wrote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness."
Chinese records speak of summer snow. Ireland suffered famine. By 541, the Justinian plague arrived, killing millions. Norse texts describe 3 winters, with no summer between, the prelude to Ragnarök. Was this myth or cultural memory? Tree ring data offers an answer. Growth nearly stopped in 536. In Denmark, oaks ceased growing entirely. Villages collapsed, roads vanished, forests reclaimed farmland. The trauma was so deep that archaeologists now believe Fimbulwinter was remembered, not invented. In Scandinavia, people buried gold, offerings to unseen forces, desperate to appease what they could not understand. Even art changed. Solar symbols disappeared, as if faith in light itself was lost. And this did not happen only once. In 940, Iceland's Eldgjá volcano erupted, releasing 5 cubic miles of lava, one of the largest lava flows in history. Just 20 years before the prophecy of the seeress was written, a poem describing Ragnarök, the sun turning black, the sky collapsing, gods bleeding into the sea. Modern scientists believe this was an eyewitness account, encoded in myth. When the same stories appear across cultures, we should ask why. Perhaps these myths were not invented, but remembered, passed down until they became legend. Across human history, apocalypse stories begin the same way. The sky darkens, the world grows cold. Humanity looks upward, searching for meaning. But what if these stories are not warnings of the future, but memories of the past? Thank you for watching Bin Explores channel. Please leave your valuable comments and likes. We will talk again in the next video.